Einen wunderschönen guten Nachmittag. Mein Name ist Peter Sidrow von itslearning und dieses Webinar heute findet hauptsächlich in englischer Sprache statt. Wir machen das so, damit auch diejenigen, die des Englischen nicht so mächtig sind, mitkommen können, machen wir eine Paralleldiskussion im Textchat. Das heißt, ich werde hin und wieder zwischendurch als Ihr Moderator ein paar Fragen dort beantworten. Im Hintergrund ist mein Kollege Jens Neumann und außerdem werde ich hin und wieder auch ein paar Slides ein bisschen für Sie live übersetzen. Ansonsten findet alles andere in Englisch statt. Und yeah, so now I will just switch to English. That was just my short intro because we today have a webinar that is held by two English-speaking experts from the United States of America. So we have Beatriz Arnillas here from today from itslearning. She's working from itslearning and she was previously the director of IT, Education and Technology in the Houston Independent School District. Hello, Beatriz.
Good morning. I know it's morning for us.
Yeah, good afternoon, good morning. And we also have Raul Alanis Jr. and he is working for Houston Independent School District today. And he is a senior education technology specialist. And I just want to explain a bit of the background why we're meeting here today. First of all, hello to Raul also. Thanks for coming.
Hi.
So the background is that in Germany we are talking more and more about the Bildungscloud, that's the educational cloud, if you translate that word by word into English. So, and what we connect over here in Germany with that is questions around curriculum management, about availability of content, about interoperability between different platforms, and the content that may be in the platform, but and not least important also the question, how can we really drive student engagement with all these questions in the background. That's why we are meeting here today, and that's why I'm so glad that you have the time to present us a little glimpse in how all these topics are solved in the United States, in this case in Houston Independent School Districts. So thank you for being here with us. And yeah, so like I said, if you have any questions in the further discussion, just ask your question in a little text box that you can see. It is planned to have a presentation now for around 35 minutes. And also what you can do is in the background, use the Twitter hashtag Bildungscloud if you want to have a parallel discussion over there. And then in the second part of this webinar, you will be also able to raise your hand. There's a little symbol in GoToWebinar where you can just say you want to ask a question or jump into the discussion so that also your questions may be answered. So yeah, that was my first part, my introduction, and I hand the word over now to Beatriz.
Thank you, Peter. If at any point in our presentation there are specific questions, I guess we will know, right? People will post their questions and Jens will let us know if we need to pause, right? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna disconnect my camera now to show our presentation. Okay. Okay, well, welcome. Good morning for us, good afternoon for all of you. We're very happy that you're here. Yeah, my slides are not moving. Okay. Okay, my slides are not moving for some reason with, let's see. Okay, that's better. So thank you for inviting us, and we have been talking with Peter now for 2 or 3 weeks about this presentation, and we've been asking him questions about what are the issues for the people who are experts in education in Germany. And to the best of our knowledge, there are quite a few topics that are probably similar between the U.S. or at least large districts like such as Houston, large cities, where there is a large number of students from many different countries, some immigrants, and there are children that speak many different languages. And so one of the things that we have been tackling in Houston, and that probably you are all talking about in your schools as well, is the need for educating our children to be global citizens. Children that when they grow up, they need to be prepared to compete for opportunities globally. Even so, there's a shift there between what we used to think about school. We were preparing our children to grow up probably in the same city, maybe in a nearby city, but now we think of them as adults that will have to compete globally. We also now consider in education it's very important to address issues of learning preferences, that many ways in which children learn, but also in some cases is special needs. And so we talk about universal design for learning, creating flexible learning environments where perhaps some of the children learn with a particular source like a text or a video, and some other students may be using different sources to learn the same topic. And we also talk about the need for authentic learning, which is learning that is based on real society problems, real life problems that need to be resolved. And the students learn as they think and talk about the problem, or they work on projects. In addition to that, we discuss frequently now about the importance of children not only knowing how to use technology to learn, but as well to stay safe while surfing the internet, and learning what can happen to data if we are not careful about the way we interact in the internet. And so that leads me to the last topic, which is the development of good citizenship, the importance for our children to understand how to be respectful and responsible users of technology. And that includes, of course, copyright and intellectual property. So in that context, we would talk briefly about the Houston story. Houston embarked on an interesting project back in 2013 when the superintendent of this district that has 215,000 students, more than 100 languages spoken, a total of 283 schools. It's the largest school district in Texas and is the 7th largest district in the United States. What's interesting about Houston is, as you can see, that about 62% of our students are, I'm going to go back, about 62% of our students are Hispanic, about 24.7% are African American, Caucasian, Asian, and others, meaning mixed race. Of these 62% Hispanic students, at least about 1/3 of them basically speak Spanish. They're recent immigrants, and their parents speak primarily Spanish at home. And so we have quite a number of students that are taking English that don't yet speak and read in English at the grade level. So, and in addition, another thing to point is that in the district of Houston, about between 75 and 80% of the students are on free and reduced lunch, which means their income is lower than middle class. Of course, there are people in Houston that have more money, but those children seem to be living in the suburbs of Houston, so they attend other school districts. So in 2012, there was a important program by PBS called Frontline, and they called it Dropout Nation. And the term dropout refers to students who do not finish high school. And in that program, they featured 4 students from one of our high schools. Sharpstown High School was dubbed as the dropout factory because so many of the students dropped out and didn't finish high school. This was the story of 4 students, Marcus, Lawrence, Marco, and Sparkle. And it was a very good program. And what it pointed out was that for some of these children that live in the inner cities in the U.S. that are poor, they're minorities, frequently they live in homes where they don't have the basic needs provided, is that they couldn't see the connection between school and their real lives. And they couldn't see that education was going to help them overcome their situation of poverty and their situation. In some cases, some of these children were homeless. Some of them had to work after school hours. In fact, Marco on the upper right worked almost full-time in addition of going to school, but he never had enough time to study. And so, in that context, and knowing that we were literally failing our students, that we were not really preparing them to be ready for college, ready for careers, and ready to be successful in their lives, we started thinking about what are the things that we could do. And I'm pointing at this research, of course, even though this didn't get published until 2016, but back in 2013, people were already looking at the possibility of one-to-one programs, and one-to-one means that the district provides students with a laptop device for all their studies. And we were beginning to see some experiences in other school districts in the country where simply having access to a laptop and high-quality content in the laptop was having a potentially positive outcome in terms of how the students were learning English, writing, mathematics, and science in particular. And in fact, this study in 2016 proves that those trends actually were truthful. And so in Houston, what we did is we had to plan, we want a curriculum that is aligned to the goals and objectives of the state of Texas in Houston. We want to make sure that all our students achieve the knowledge and the skills, and also that they know how to learn so that they can continue learning. And then we decided to design a space where technology could support education so that we could have positive, improved learning outcomes. But we also understood that it was more than having good grades. And so before we distributed laptops to students and teachers, we wrote a brief white paper talking about the importance of teaching our students to learn how to learn. And so our approach was that we want students more active in the classroom. We want them working on projects and constructing knowledge. We wanted to introduce assessment as learning. In other words, provide opportunities for practice, activities, and formative assessment so the students can get constant feedback and they can improve their learning and they can monitor their learning instead of just having a grade at the end of the semester. We wanted to provide opportunity for the students to create objects that prove that they have learned, encourage collaborative learning, and model effective communication, because these are skills that our students will need to be successful in the workplace. But in addition to this, we also state very clearly that we wanted students to know how to use technology so that they cannot be replaced by technology. And we can see now that the workforce is beginning to become automated. Technology is taking a big role in economics and in the workplace. And if the students don't know how to use technology to be productive, we realize they would just not succeed in their lives. And so this is our new model, that we actually want much more than better grades. We want students to construct learning so that they can be agents that participate fully in a democratic system. And so what is the role that we play in a central office, in a district with 283 schools and 215,000 students and almost 30,000 employees? What is the role that the people in the central office play? And so our role is to create environments that will support student or learner-centered instruction and promote communication, collaboration, productivity, and a growth mindset. This means that we have to help the principals to create a particular school climate or a cultural environment that fosters collaboration, where error is seen as part of the process of learning and not failure. And of course, from an IT and educational technology perspective, that we create a user-friendly and coherent digital ecosystem. In other words, that when we're not teaching students how to use technology, the technology has to be invisible. The technology has to be so easy to use that it just makes learning easier. So we adopted itslearning, And we define the ecosystem as an interdependent group of people and systems that share standardized digital resources and tools for the purpose of improving the teaching and learning process. This means from an IT and education perspective, education technology, that we needed to create easy navigation and help the stakeholders, meaning students, parents, teachers, be connected and build an effective digital society. So this means really for us that we need to take a systems approach to solving the problem of how to deliver high quality content aligned to learning objectives and also to make the environment easy to use for the learner. What you see here, I'm going to hand, let's see, Raul, can you take over from here and I can move the slides as you told me to do that?
Yes. So you're looking at here are some of the documents that the Houston ISD district used to provide to teachers. And so what you're seeing are these very static, very dense PDF documents that we gave our teachers as their only real resource for instruction aside from their textbooks. And this really wasn't working for our teachers, and we needed to find a new way of providing resources for them.
Here is a screenshot of what itslearning can do for a dynamic curriculum. And this is just one unit. And here is the first plan that hasn't been developed yet. But as you can see, the unit already has learning standards associated with it. And then also other learning standards that are dependent of these learning standards. The learning standards have already been added in the units. And so from the moment you add these learning standards, every resource that is added into this curriculum planning guide is automatically linked to the learning standards that have been established as part of the lesson. And this helps the system track, so any activity or assessment that the student takes will already be connected to that particular learning standard. I'm going to exit very briefly from the PowerPoint to show you what this looks in reality. Here is the planning guide, and you can add a source from the course or from the library. Once you add the course, the source from inside the course or the library, then that source will automatically, I'm sorry, this is a fake course, so I don't have any resources in it, but the source would automatically be connected to this learning standard. So I'm going to go now back to our slide deck and show you that when the students take an assessment, you will be able to see who are the students who have not been able to meet the standard that was being assessed by that lesson. And as a result, if you click on that, you'll be able to get a report from all the students who did not master that particular standard. And then the teacher and the student can manually override some of these, and then they can decide to add some other resources. So even though the machine produces an automated list, it's also possible to customize the list. And in addition to that, each student gets an individual report that says which standards have been met and which standards have not been met yet. So the teacher and the student can work on providing material to prepare them to pass these particular standards that have not been mastered. I'm going to pass it on to Raul. Raul, do you need me to give you the control of the screen?
No, just go ahead and hit play. So okay. In addition to using the planner and all of those resources, one of the things that HISD provides is we now provide a master course. And what you're seeing here is an example of a master course for biology class. And as you can see, this content is more interactive. It's actually meant for students to interact with. We have flashcards, we have videos that are embedded, we have all kinds of content that will actually help a teacher deliver what we call 21st century instruction, and that's instruction that's centered around students and really engaging them in their learning. Additionally, another tool in its learning that we have found to be really helpful is the alignment report. And so what you can see here is that as teachers are adding content and lessons to their planner, all of those resources are tagged to the learning objectives, as Beatriz stated, but here we see an alignment report where we can get a quick overview of all of the learning objectives for the course, and anything that's highlighted in green are learning objectives that have resources associated with them, and those that are not highlighted, it means that the teacher hasn't yet covered that learning objective in this class. Additionally, another resource we provide for teachers is our digital resource menu. And so we know that there are a lot of open source and free resources out there for teachers. A lot of them are tools for video editing like WeVideo. And it's our job as a central office to provide guidance to them. And so we're able to actually, with this tool, provide them information about best privacy practices to ensure that tools are aligned to our district privacy goals, as well as information about how to use it in the classroom and who to contact for technical support.
In addition to this, we also built a library that has content from all the major publishers and then some other publishers that are maybe less known, but provide opportunity to make sure that we address the needs of every student, whether they have learning disabilities or they have special needs for learning. The publishers that you see here have all delivered content to the itslearning library. So instead of having to go to 25 different platforms, in this case a high school teacher would simply go to the itslearning library, and inside the library the teacher could do a search for content. And instead of just finding a book from Pearson or a book from McGraw-Hill, the teacher could introduce a keyword or a standard and find content from multiple sources at the same time and create a playlist that will provide to students in the classroom to learn from different resources. So Raul is going to do a demonstration of how to do a search in its learning library in the Houston library today.
All right, so right here you can see the Houston ISD its learning library. I'm just going to go ahead and collapse this so you can see my screen a little better. And so I'm going to go ahead and search for cells. So let's say I was a high school biology teacher, and you can see I quickly get several results, and as Beatriz mentioned, they're from various publishers. Right here I have a result from Novation. I can quickly see which learning objectives are associated with this search result. In addition, I have McGraw-Hill, Novation, and several other publishers. On the right-hand side, I have the ability to filter my search results further. I can add a learning objective. So if I know exactly which learning objective I'm looking for, I can filter that down. So I can go to Texas, our essential knowledge and skills. I can go to science, biology, and we are looking at 11.4. And I want to go ahead and compare and contrast. I've now narrowed down my search results to only search results that are associated with this learning objective. I can click on a result and view it. As you can see, it's not asking me for any usernames or passwords. I'm automatically being logged into the resource, and I'm able to use it, take a look at it. If it's something I'm interested in sharing with my students, I can go ahead and add it to my course, or I can add it to a planner that I've already built in one of my classes. Additionally, if I know that, for example, all of the HISD textbooks for biology are from Pearson, I can filter that down and only get search results from that provider. I'm going to go ahead and pass the screen back to Beatriz.
Thank you, Raul. Okay. Okay, so so I wonder if you're wondering how did we achieve this? How did we get all this content from all these different content providers and famous publishers in one single library? First of all, I want to pause for a second just in case there are burning questions that we need to answer before we move on. Peter or Jens, if you'd let me know if it's okay to keep going.
Yeah, so if you have any questions in the meantime, you may ask them now via text or maybe raise your hand. Sie können jetzt Ihre Frage kurz stellen per Text oder das Handzeichen geben, wenn Sie hier schon eine Zwischenfrage stellen möchten. Ansonsten gehen wir weiter und Sie haben nachher die Gelegenheit. If not, we can go ahead and then later on we can answer the questions. Thanks, everything all right is one question for now. So I would suggest we go ahead now and come to the questions later.
Okay, very well. So, okay, so what we did in Houston is we learned about an organization, the IMS Global Consortium. And the reason why this organization was so important to us is because IMS Global has created open digital content interoperability standards. And the word open is critical here because the consortium is a group of educators, technologists, and publishers, and also LMS providers that got together to review and solve some of the technology problems that K-12 education has today. And so when we joined the IMS Global Consortium, we adopted a few open standards that are very important for the creation of our library. The first standard that I want to talk about is called LTI links. Essentially, an LTI link is a single link with enough context or information that it provides a form of single sign-on. And so the student clicks on the LTI link, the LMS provides, requests access from the publisher. I want you to notice that all the content is still residing in the publisher server. The publisher authenticates, approves, or rejects access based on the information in the link. And if the publisher determines that this particular user should have access based on the ID provided, access is approved. The instructional resources are shown in the student computer. The student doesn't know whether the resources reside in the LMS or in the publisher server. And he shouldn't worry about it because the important thing is that he has the information he needs to learn. And then if there is an assignment to submit, and there is a grade, the publisher is able to return the grades to the LMS, and the LMS is able to provide whatever feedback is necessary based on the assignment. So what are the benefits of an LTI link? It's a very simple and inexpensive way of providing single sign-on access. Before LTI, it cost Houston many hundreds of thousands of dollars to provide single sign-on services to the more than 200 different applications we use in the schools. Users enter their ID and password only one time to access the LMS, and then all the instructional resources are opened through the LMS, even if they reside in the publisher servers. And one link can direct the teachers and the students to the entire ebook or publication, including the index space and also the scope and sequence of the lesson. And another very important open standard that we adopted in Houston is called the Thin Common Cartridge. And what's interesting about the Thin Common Cartridge is that it is just a manifest or a file with a collection of LTI links. This manifest is embedded inside the LMS, and each one of the links provide access to specific topics inside a digital text. I want you to notice that the text is still residing in the publisher servers. And so the publisher retains all the intellectual property and the copyright protections that they would like to have. However, the topic is able to open inside the LMS library, even though it doesn't reside in it. The way that this happens is through the context of each one of the links and meta tagging. So each link can be searched from the itslearning library by keywords, learning objectives, the way that Raul demonstrated for you. And also you can search by file type. So you can select a visual version, a text, audio, activity, or interactive resource for each lesson. In that way, you can address the different needs that the students may have. Each link directs the user only to a specific point in the publication. So you don't open the whole book in order to access the content. So let me back off here because I skipped. So the student puts a keyword, and then the search engine in itslearning finds all the different resources that match that keyword and requests access from different publisher servers. And then the publishers provide access to various different sources. So it's a way of creating a diverse playlist where the student can use for teaching and learning. So what are the advantages of a Thin Common Cartridge? Students and teachers can find multiple sources of content for each topic, and so it's available for individualization. The topic can be stated in various formats, and the teacher can individualize instruction and provide universal design for learning. And the last open standard I would like to talk about briefly is called OneRoster. A roster is an information file that provides student IDs and roles and memberships. So in the student information system, we have the class schedules, the list of teachers, the students, and the school leaders. And the OneRoster provides information about which students are associated with which teachers and with which classes in order to inform the publishers to what publications each student should have access. And it protects the copyright and the intellectual property of the publishers, but it also at the same time provides access. The advantage of the OneRoster is that it's one universal format. Until 2 years ago, Houston had so many different customized rosters they needed to prepare that it cost the district a fortune, and we were never able to deliver all the access to different platforms on time and when the students and teachers needed it. But with OneRoster, which is automatically updated every 24 hours, the LMS is able to update every time our students leave. Our students are leaving one school, moving to another school, etc. The class roles are immediately updated and students have access to all the materials that they need. The OneRoster is also given to the publishers, so when itslearning requests access to a particular content, the publisher is able to compare the list of students they know should have access to that particular book and provide access in that way. So what are the benefits of OneRoster? It provisions enrollment data between systems and applications. It provides us the ability to implement flexible technology options. It is an improved way of providing data exchange and much more inexpensive. And it also has the potential of transmitting scored results between applications. But it's also important to notice that the OneRoster helps us protect the copyright of publishers. So in other words, if McGraw-Hill has a book only for 9th graders, by using the OneRoster, they're able to authenticate and confirm, provide access only to those students that should have access to their books. So why is IMS global and why is it important to know about it? Because it is a consortium where the school specialists work together with technology specialists and vendors, and together they find a solution to provide important access to all the students and the teachers to their materials. Because it is a consortium, not for profit, then the standards are open and the members of the consortium just pay an annual fee to keep the consortium functioning. but not, they don't have to pay to use the standards. We know that the way that schools and authorities are organized in Germany are not necessarily the same as in the US. In Houston, we have a very large district with 283 schools. We have 13,000 teachers, and then we have about the same number of staff in the central district office. When you see the shades in the background, this is the policy level and curriculum standards governance group. It seems to me, based on conversations with Peter, that in our case, the policy and curriculum standards are mandated by the state, and there's a certain level of professionals in the district that are also involved in policy and curriculum standards. It looks like in Germany, it's dictated by the ministry and the institute. And then regulation, leadership, and support levels for the schools are shared in Germany by the institute and the school development office. And that level is also addressed by the central office district professionals in Houston, people like Raul. And when I was in Houston, I was also there. And then the implementation strategies and tactics are also provided by certain groups in the district, and maybe in Germany by the school development groups, and they provide services to the schools. And so this is important to think about, because to implement solutions of this magnitude requires coordination. So in the case of Houston, the way that things were decided is that the vision and the mission came from the superintendent and the C-suite, and with the policy level and the governance level. But then in the central office, there are expertise to provide curriculum expertise, information technology expertise, school leadership development, development of principals, and teacher development resources. So this group is the group that implemented all the change. When this group could not come up with solutions, they would refer to the C-suite and request for guidance based on strategy. But also this group never decided without consulting with the teachers and the school leaders. And the same thing happened between these two groups. In particularly, school leaders were in constant contact with the top leadership of the school district. I am showing this just because this is our experience in Houston. And of course, we would be interested in getting you to share about how you would be able to implement something like this in Germany. I am going to come out of the presentation mode, but I am going to keep my slides open, because we have some additional slides in case there are questions, and we can use some graphics to reply to them.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot, Beatriz and Raul. This looks for me, we have now a bit of time left, luckily, for having a discussion. And to start the discussion, I prepared a very short survey where all of you can quickly participate, which will just hopefully guide us through which topics are probably the most relevant to you after you have seen all these different aspects of a Bildungscloud. So the question is, which of following Bildungscloud topics, so educational cloud topics, is most relevant to you? Please choose one of these. I will explain in German also. Welche dieser folgenden Bildungscloud-Themen, die Sie eben gesehen haben, ist für Sie am relevantesten? Bitte treffen Sie eine Auswahl. Sie können, soweit ich das jetzt hier sehe, nur eins der genannten auswählen. Und mit einer kurzen, wenn wir uns das gleich anschauen, dann werden wir auch ein bisschen besser verstehen, auf welches Thema wir uns in der Diskussion gleich vielleicht konzentrieren sollten. Okay, ich gebe Ihnen noch 5 Sekunden. I give you 5 more seconds. Okay, I close this now. So the tendency is quite clear. The most interesting for the audience will be the vision, the strategy, and the change management that lies behind this, but also the questions around interoperability are quite important, followed by the dynamic curriculum itself. And there's also one question already from the audience, which is how long takes the process? So I lay it into your hands, Beatriz and Raul, to answer these questions, and then the audience may feel free just to raise your hand. There's a little hand symbol which you can just click on, and then it is also possible to, if you have a microphone, to just participate with your audio stream. Yeah, and we can also switch on the webcam again.
So I want to see the questions.
Do you see them? No.
Yes, I can see the questions. I'd be happy to answer some of those questions. We have some graphics that perhaps would be helpful. Let me see. Where are the questions? Oh, change management and strategy, correct?
Yes.
So
the vision, the strategy, and the change management was the most interesting for the audience. And there was already one question also about how long did the process go?
Yes, so the process, we started this process in 2013. The moment we heard from Superintendent Greer that we wanted to do a one-to-one initiative, the curriculum department and the education technology department started working immediately together. Before we distributed anything, we sat together and we decided that we wanted our strategy for it has to be a pedagogical model. And our pedagogical model was to provide our students with learning that seems more relevant to them. It seemed to us that we were missing on providing them with an idea that education was going to be useful to them, and that's why so many of our students were dropping out. So we had to do what we call in English authentic learning. Mm-hmm. And it refers to John Dewey's education theory. We wrote a very brief paper where we talked about providing authentic learning that is connected to real life. So problem-based learning and project-based learning. We decided that technology was going to be useful when technology would provide meaningful and valuable differences in the learning process. In other words, if the technology is not useful, put it away. But when the technology is useful because it provides us multiple sources of information and it provides the teacher the ability to divide the class in groups and provide different strategies for different students based on their need, then the technology would help us do that. We bring out the technology. We decided that education had to support up-to-date information of problems in the society, in the community, and in the world, because our students are living in the world today and because they couldn't figure out how education could help them. So we decided that education needed to provide and support ways in which they can acquire information today to solve real-life problems. And we also decided that, of course, we need to teach students how to learn metacognition. What do they learn best? Become aware of what are there. So all these decisions were made in the central office, and this decision created the vision for the program. Once the vision was there, every other decision that was made was guided by these decisions. And so I showed this schematic of how decisions were made in the district based on that vision. And of course, there were some strategic decisions. For example, how do you do the teacher buy-in? And we followed this model. It's called the diffusion of technology model. If you see here, 5% of teachers love technology and they will use technology no matter what. And about 13 or 14% of teachers are early adopters. They're curious about technology and they will use the technology because they think it can solve some problems. But the group we needed to target based on this theory is what we call the early majority. These are teachers that are not necessarily going to jump into technology the first time they see it. But at the same time, they are teachers that will use technology if appropriate supports and help are provided. if these teachers adopt technology in an effective way, then this other 34 or 35% of teachers will adopt technology not because the officials of the district say it, but because their friends in the early majority group are using the technology and they learn from each other. So this is done via the professional learning communities, teachers teaching teachers. And one last graphic I want to show about change management is this. This is called the instruction, that technology integration matrix was developed by the University of South Florida. I'm going to enlarge this a little bit. As you can see, the top axis shows levels of technology integration. At the entry and at the adoption level, the technology is simply replacing textbooks, but the procedures to learn are not being modified at all. So there's no benefit to the use of the technology. But at the adaptation, infusion, and transformation levels, the technology is used in such a way that the students are able to be a lot more active in their learning, and they're able to make decisions about their learning. In other words, the students are learning to learn. It was very important to provide our teachers with this tool because they didn't know what we meant when we said, we want the education to be more student-centered. We want you to be able to individualize learning. We want the students to be more active in their learning. The teachers didn't understand what that meant. This tool from the University of South Florida, called the Technology Integration Matrix, if you go online, provides little video examples of each of these stages. So a teacher can go and watch the video and she or he can see what is the difference between an adoption level, an adaptation, an infusion level, and how this is informing the students and helping them learn in a different way. I'm going to stop that. I can't get my, there you go. Okay, I'm going to get my slides out of the screen. I'm just going to close it because it doesn't want to close. There you go. Okay. I think I've answered the question about strategy and change management, at least partially, but I would like to know from our participants if they feel like that was answered.
Yeah, so now it's time for you again to ask some further questions, to just type something that you feel is still unanswered, or just to tell us if everything you wanted to know is answered now. I can't imagine, because this is such a complex project. Gibt es noch weitere Fragen, die Sie an Beatriz und Raul zu stellen haben? Dann dürfen Sie die gerne stellen. Mit dem Handzeichen-Symbol zum Beispiel oder per Text.
I think I didn't answer how long it took, but you know, it took at least 2.5 years to get some results. Because the first year we just provided the teachers with laptops for 4 months. Then we provided the laptops for the students for 5 months. And we introduced its learning on that second year. And at the end of the second year, we began to see improvement in our student grades and improved engagement. And so the students were more involved in their learning. They were taking more responsibility for their learning, and the grades improved.
Just for me again, I didn't listen properly. 2014, was it when you started this initiative? Or
the fall of 2013 we started.
Okay.
And the students didn't get their devices until January of 2015. I'm sorry, January of 2014. And by the end of the year in 2015, we already had positive outcomes, improved math and reading scores. But also the teachers started noticing improved student engagement from the very first semester. So we also have qualitative data from focus groups that informs us that the campus climate, the environment in which the students learn, started to improve immediately.
there's one other question. How many people were active in the setup of all the project and the concept, and if you take all the departments and all the people together that were involved in the planning and in the executing?
Yes. So in the central office, we have the Department of Curriculum, Professional Development, Education Technology, IT Infrastructure, Communications, and the School Leadership Office. So that's 6 different departments, all of which provide support to the schools. We started the project in 11 high schools on year 1. So 2013, 2014 was 11 high schools, and it counted for almost 20,000 students. In the second year, we added 22 high schools. And on the third year, we added the remainder of the high schools. And now today, on year 4, we have 44 high schools, about 66,000 students in the one-to-one initiative, and all their teachers. So every single high school student has a laptop and has access to all digital curriculum through itslearning. The middle school and the high school students also have access to itslearning, and they use itslearning, and they have some digital material in the hub, but not all of it, because the elementary and middle schools, we don't have one-to-one. We don't have a laptop for every child.
There was, before we planned this, we did a little survey and asked for some questions. So one relevant question is also, how do students react on these changes?
I'm going to let Raul talk about that, because Raul is in the schools every day.
Yeah, so it was a big change for a lot of our students, especially initially. A lot of our students had never had the opportunity to actually work on a computer. So the first couple of months, it was a bit of a struggle with getting them to learn, how do I save a file? How do I navigate to different web pages? But once we started teaching them those skills, they really started to see the power behind having one of these devices. Our students shifted from, timidly raising their hand to ask a question, to looking it up themselves and doing the research and the investigations on their own without really relying on the teacher to be their sole source of information.
It's really important to notice that we're talking about 44 high schools, and each high school is in a neighborhood, and they have their own culture and different populations, different demographics. So even though we implemented this program in a consistent way, that the principals and the teachers were able to decide in how they were going to blend the content and what are the methods they were going to use for teaching and learning based on their demographics, their student needs, and the community characteristics. So we have a school like the Energy High School that is all project-based learning, and Raul can talk very much about that. We have also a school such as Austin High School, a very, very large school in a primarily Latino community, where many of the students would arrive to high school and reading at elementary level. And so they had problems reading. And that school decided to create a personalized learning academy, and they selected randomly 150 freshmen on the first year, and they will continue to grow the personalized academy by 150 students every year until the entire high school, which is about 3,500 students, will be personalized in their model. But this means that the students are taught to take responsibility for their learning, and 2 days a week they have a completely flexible schedule, and they decide what are the materials they're going to study in those flexible days based on where they need the most help.
Is there any more questions from the audience? Because I have several questions, but this is made for you. I am interested, here's another question coming in. I am interested in the link to the model and the videos. So yeah, we can share that afterwards with you. And What I have as a big question, because in Germany we are not very far with that topic, how the curriculum can be connected to digital assets from publishers and from other sources. So what is best to initially make the switch from a static curriculum to a dynamic curriculum? Because this is also the big question on top of our curriculum series or our webinar series. So in what steps did you exactly do that to make the switch from the static to the dynamic curriculum?
This is a very good question, because when we first started using itslearning, our curriculum department essentially replicated that static document that Raul showed, and they created it exactly the same way in itslearning, and they very quickly realized this is not what the teachers wanted. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to see that the curriculum planning guides can be created in the planner as a recommendation for flexible planning for the teachers. The first year, it's not a good idea to ask teachers to plan their lessons in the planner. The first year, the best thing to do is create master courses. So a central office department creates the planning guides in the planner and does a lot of the basic work of aligning standards to lessons and units. And then the central office creates a few model lessons and courses to teach teachers what a good lesson, digital lesson, might look like. So Raul showed briefly an example of a master course. This gives teachers time to learn to use the platform before they're faced with the need to design online learning. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And then in terms of how you speak to the publishers and also about the standards, of course you solved these questions first, and then of course you put it into the practice in the courses. Which other steps have had to be made for this to make this a successful project?
The publishers were concerned primarily about two things. Mm-hmm. One thing they were concerned about was the integrity of their intellectual property. When they build a book, the book has a consistent scope and sequence, and they were concerned about the integrity of this content, that if you divide the content into chunks of content, will the students have enough context to understand each section? And also, would the publisher have the ability to control the intellectual property, meaning they didn't want to give access to students who shouldn't have access. Of course, the other concern the publishers had was that they like to sell you their entire books. They don't like the idea that you're going to have several collections from different people to teach a topic. But the way we convince the publishers to work with us is that we talk to them about the needs of our students. We said our students are not graduating ready for college. They're not ready for technical careers. And they're not always being able to notice the connection between what they're learning in your book and real life. And this is why we want to supplement material. Instead of just providing your book, we want to also supplement with additional material as a strategy to engage the low-income urban student learner. Because we are a large district, 215,000 students is a very large district, we were able to tell the publishers, if you don't give us a Thin Common Cartridge, we'll just buy from your competitor. And that was a very compelling reason to work with us. And so it's very important to think, I know in Germany, the districts are not as large as in the US, but perhaps districts or schools can get together in consortium and get organized. So when they go to talk to vendors, they talk to vendors as a group instead of each school individually. The fact that the Thin Common Cartridge resides in the vendor server protects the vendor intellectual property. So that problem was taken care of. Mm-hmm. But it's very important to be able to put pressure on the vendors and say, if you do not provide us this in this format, we will not do business with you. That was a very critical part of the Houston strategy.
Okay, thank you. There's one last question from today from the audience. How did you train and support the teachers during the phases of implementation?
Did you want to answer that, Raul?
Yeah, so that was the educational technology team in conjunction with the curriculum department. So that team originally was made up of about 12 people. And that was the different instructional technology specialists would actually go to a school, and we would sit down with teachers and really identify where they were in the process, what their needs were, and even sometimes help plan out what their day would look like, provide them with various tools that they could use, and at times even sit down in the class with them and essentially co-teach to help model what good instructional practices using the technology looked like for them. And so that was a process that it took, time and working with all those teachers, but it also made sure that every teacher got an experience that was tailored to them, just like what we wanted them to do for their students.
In addition, there was an instructional technologist in each high school. So there was a full-time staff person in each high school right there in the building with them. So when the education technology team couldn't be there, there was somebody to help them. And there was training on Saturdays.
And was that a person that was able to understand the technology as one part and also the concepts of blended learning?
Correct.
Because this is maybe one of the biggest challenges we have in Germany, that this role doesn't even exist in schools directly, at least. And yeah, that's also a very big thing to think about in Germany, how to set this up.
We talked a lot about that, and in some cases the librarians, if they are digitally inclined, can serve that purpose if they're developed professionally. Maybe if they can attend some courses about instructional design and instructional technology, a librarian could take that role of support.
Okay, I think we are quite far with the time already, but we had the chance to answer your questions, and I hope the audience is very happy with having had this glimpse into Houston Independent School District. I thank you very lot, Raul and Beatriz, for being here with us today. And I'm happy that you also will share the slides with us. You will, I think, and also that we have the recording so that we also can have a look into this afterwards again. Yes, and also I want to invite you all to the next part of the series, which will take place on 31st of May. We will look into the Oslo district, Oslo in Norway, and we will have a third part of this curriculum series on 13th of June, where we will look into some German examples that we have over here already. So I thank you all very much. And yeah, just stay tuned for 30 seconds when I close this webinar now. There will be a short survey. I will be very happy if you can answer 2 little questions about how you received this webinar today. Thanks a lot, and have a good day in the United States. The day is long still. And in Germany we can say have a nice Feierabend. Vielen Dank. Auf Wiederhören.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.